Okay, rant time. There's one constant about the National Football League. It's not going anywhere, and it's always going to be the top dog. It doesn't matter what kind of controversy, drama, doesn't matter. It's never going to be affected. It's never going to be truly impacted enough to actually ever be killed. It always will have the ratings, the interest, incredible popularity, and be the top dog in terms of sports league, maybe even entertainment products in general. It's never going to change, no matter what some may think. But that doesn't mean the product's what it used to be. That doesn't mean the product's at its best. That doesn't mean the quality of this product doesn't suck a little bit. And there's one thing that just is plaguing the NFL that just is worse this year than any other year. And it's off the hinges of the controversy of last season. It's the dreaded pass interference call. Okay? The dreaded pass interference call is helping to kill the National Football League, at least in terms of quality, at least in terms of this product that we're watching. I'm Mike Asti, and this is Pittsburgh Sports Live and SteelersNow.com. And I'm coming at you from an undisclosed location outside the press box or near the press box inside Heinz Field after the Steelers get a victory on Monday Night Football. Okay? But I'm doing so speaking in general around the National Football League, but especially this game in particular, because this game had the highlights of this more than really any other I've seen all year, but they all have at times. There's been this all year at times, even going to the Steelers throughout this season. Pass interference affecting the game, and not necessarily affecting the outcome of games. It has. The Steelers had that controversial pass interference that was reviewed and gone back and forth on in that game against Seattle, which they ended up losing, and they need every win they can have this year, obviously. But this game, they won anyway, 27-14. They started off slow. They end up coming back. It's a winless Miami team. They got the victory, and none of this affected the win, but it still annoyed me because it hurt what I'm watching. It hurt what I had to watch from the press box in terms of the entertainment value of the game. Pass interference, it seemed, on every other play. A pass play, you can just chuck it up and it ends up being pass interference. A hope and a prayer. Brett Favre would salivate in this NFL today even more so than the past, because every pass would either be a touchdown, a pick, or pass interference. And he might have had that strategy in the past at times, but it's just almost a guarantee you're going to have pass interference if it's not ends up going for a catch, or even result in offensive pass interference with the way things work now. The Deontay Johnson offensive pass interference, it was, let's be real, Steeler fans, it was an offensive pass interference. He's yanking on an arm, okay? That's an offensive PI. But there was offensive, there was defensive, there was pass interference all throughout the game. And I'm not saying don't call it when it's there, but you have to remember, the NFL, and they can say what they want about this we know is true. We can see it with our eyes, regardless of what maybe numbers will tell us. And I'm a numbers guy often, but I can see this, and this is clear. The NFL is coming off the heels of a very controversial playoff game a year ago that eventually maybe did decide who was the champion. The NFC Championship game, Saints-Rams, the Rams went to the Super Bowl, they lost to New England, but they got there thanks to a pass interference situation. A non-pass interference call, a pass interference that was not called when it should have been called in that NFC title game. Screwed over the Saints. They're still hanging Roger Goodell on a noose out there. They're taking him through parades. They hate the man. They're blaming him for stealing another ring off their fingers, and that got the Rams onto the Super Bowl. Okay? I'm with you. I get it. That should have been pass interference. I hear that. The Saints did get screwed in a way. They made their mistakes earlier, but they got screwed in a way. That should have been pass interference. And there's been other controversial calls throughout the history of the National Football League in terms of PI that should or should not have been called. However, from that situation, the NFL then adapted this new rule that is just running rampant over the NFL this year in terms of now the ability to review pass interference whether or not it's called. Okay, they now can take pass interference and decide whether that should have been called on a review. They can have no call, like there was in the NFC title game. They can have no call at all, or like the Steelers had earlier in the year, and then flip it, and now all of a sudden, there's pass interference. And I hear that, yes, you want to get the calls right, but every single time there's a whistle, every single time there's a flag in all of sports, you take away from the product of the game. And this is entertainment in a way, even though obviously it's competitive sports. there are an abundance of pass interference calls every single game. There's tons of them. Whether they affect the game or not, they are affecting the product that you're watching. And really, the entire principle, and I've been thinking this, I've been saying this, I've been meaning to do a show about this, but now I've exploded based on the game I just saw in terms of, and I really wish I could let loose even further, but I still am here at Heinz Field and I do like my credential, that pass interference needs to be calmed a bit, because the entire principle of being able to review what's not called, it is a judgment call. Okay, pass interference is a judgment call. I get it. You're never going to have 100% effectiveness on a judgment call. It's never, ever, never, ever, for the Chris Jericho impersonation there, it's never gonna work. It's never gonna be 100% effectiveness. The accuracy is never gonna be what you want, or the NFL thinks maybe it wants, or the fans want. There's gonna be missed calls. But now, if it's me, I would rather the Saints, for example, I would rather my team lose a game on a pass interference or one that's not called than have a situation like that happen to the Steelers against Seattle early in the year. And I'm not blaming this call in terms of losing them the game, but just speak with me here. You hear me out. Or what happened to the Steelers earlier in the year, just in general, what's happened to teams this year, happened to Green Bay or earlier in the season as well, where a situation where it's not pass interference, they then all of a sudden review it, and then they see pass interference, then ends up hurting you, okay? That's worse for me, and that's happening all over the field. So you're getting more stoppages with all these pass interference. The fact that they're keeping so much a focus on pass interference, all these stoppages, taking away from the product, taking away from the entertainment value of the product on the field. And this, whether they like it or not, is all because of the NFC title game. They wanted a quick fix and freaked out because of what happened to the Saints. The New Orleans Saints fans literally created a rule change in the National Football League. And it was one rule change. There's been some that are good. The field goal situation, overtime now, allowing teams to have answers, not getting screwed by just one kick of a field goal. That's good. That was a good rule change. This, though, is a quick trigger off of one controversy, and now it's spun out of control. Now you're taking away from the product on the field the entertainment value with all of these stoppages, with all of these pass interferences, and with all of these reviews. It doesn't even have to be from the coaches. The refs are doing it now. All of these reviews off of pass interference that did not initially exist. Isn't that more of a kick in the gonads for a pass interference call to then hurt you when it wasn't there in the first place? You see that all through the National Football League. But this Steelers-Dolphins game, this Monday Night Football Steelers-Dolphins game, all through that game, pass interference after pass interference after pass interference, makes you roll your eyes, makes me want to slap myself. It takes away from the game, okay? It really, really does. And lastly, in terms of not necessarily a rule change, but a rule change of years ago that's now really running rampant in terms of getting worse and worse as well. This is pass interference, now being able to review that. That's one rule change that was knee-jerk and has made the game worse from an entertainment aspect for sure, for my money, but also to the fact of, I'm not somebody who's against reviews, okay? I get you maybe need to review things, but what they said many, many moons ago when they started reviewing plays in the National Football League, if there is not conclusive, keyword, conclusive, if there is not conclusive evidence warranting overturning a call, we go and we stick with the initial call on the field. The initial call then would stand. I'm not taking anybody's ability to review away. Okay, give the coaches a few, let them try to review things. It sucks when it's going to pass interference and judgment calls and penalties, if that's the case, but go ahead. We can have reviews. That's not my problem. My issue is and this went to the offensive pass interference, that yes, it was offensive pass interference on Deontay Johnson. He maybe didn't think so. He still argued it when we were in the locker room. He later would score a touchdown. It didn't really matter. And it was part of the annoyances of all the PIs. But that was offensive pass interference. I'm against him there. That's keeping it real and being honest. That was offensive PI. However, that took what felt like 10 minutes. I mean, that it might even have felt longer to you in terms of the time it took to review that. Unnecessary, ridiculous, asinine and not administering the reviews the way they were supposed to be done initially. Conclusive evidence is what you're looking for. If you don't see conclusive evidence to overturn something in the first few minutes of looking at it, of the review, then you don't have conclusive evidence, okay? If you don't see anything to overturn it, then there's not conclusive evidence warranting overturning it, and you just stick on what the call is on the field. I don't care what the call is. I don't care whether it's the right call, the wrong call, whatever the call is. I don't care what's going on. If you don't have enough evidence to overturn it, if your evidence that you have does not warrant conclusive evidence to overturn the initial call, it's simple then. You stick with the initial call. Why are we dealing with 10, 15? It feels like a damn half hour sometimes waiting for these referees to just review one call. And I know not literally 30 minutes are going by, but you're already dealing with more penalties. You're already dealing with now more things that are reviewable, as I roll my eyes and go back to the pass interference rant earlier in this show. But now you're not even administering the rule, and it's getting worse and worse each year, however on, etc. They're running rampant in terms of trying to be celebrities here, and we all know that's what they want. They want their TV time. I get it. I like the limelight too, but that's not what they're there for. That's not what they're paid to do. And if you don't have conclusive evidence to overturn the call, if you need 10 minutes to find out if there is conclusive evidence, then it's not. Then it's not conclusive evidence to warranting overturning that call. These reviews are taking too long. It's unnecessary, and if you need that much time to review something, then there's not enough conclusive evidence to warrant overturning it, and you just stick with the initial call. This works across the board. I don't care what you're reviewing. I don't care what the call is. I don't care if you get it right or wrong. Go get mad at me. If you don't have conclusive evidence to overturn the initial call, you don't change it. You stick with the initial call. Why is that not being followed? That's what's killing reviews. It's not reviews in general that some of you don't like. Reviews are okay. I like reviews, actually. Reviews need to be there. There's no reason to regress in terms of technology and modernizing sports. Every sport able to review. No reason for you not to have reviews in the most popular and most watched league out there in the National Football League. But just follow the order of the law. Just follow what you said when you were originally pioneering reviews many years ago. If there's not conclusive evidence to overturn the call, to warrant overturning the call, you don't. You stick with the initial call. It's really, really not that hard. But, of course, I will have to digress for the rest of this and be back, I'm sure, with more rants, as nothing will get fixed. It never did. And again, the knee-jerk reaction will probably make things worse and worse. But as I said, the NFL knows it can get away with murder, can do whatever it wants to the product, to what our eyes are watching, the quality on the field, because we're suckers and we're going to be there anyway. And the NFL is not going anywhere at all and will always be that giant amongst everything else. Make sure to hit up the family of networks: Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, WVSportsNow.com, one of our newest members within the family of networks, and of course, SteelersNow.com. I'm your host, Mike Asti. Follow me at MikeAsti11 on Twitter. Try to keep the debates intelligent. I know that's often asking a lot, though, for you on the Twitterverse. At PGH Sports Live on Twitter for Pittsburgh Sports Live. At PGH Steelers Now on Twitter for Steelers Now's account. Find us on Facebook for Steelers Now, for Pittsburgh Sports Live. For everything else, all my colleagues throughout the family of networks as well. And find down below on this video, click subscribe. Click on the subscribe button down below on this video. Make it easier for us to get the content to you, and you don't have to worry about promoting, or don't have to worry about following us if you don't want to, but you want to hear the videos. They're there. They'll notify you immediately when one of my radio gold gems, or really anyone else here, anything we do in the locker room, interviews, press conferences, any of the players, even other shows out here that are occasionally on the channel, any of that popping up, all of it for you. Pittsburgh Sports Live on YouTube, and you click subscribe, and then it's there automatically for you. So again, the knee-jerk reaction from the NFL, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to be hurt. The product's going to dominate in terms of revenue and interest. They know it too. They have you by the you-know-what. But that doesn't mean pass interference isn't running rampant. That doesn't mean pass interference isn't being called too prevalently. That doesn't mean that last year's controversy in the NFC title game, Saints and Rams, Saints getting screwed, is not why we're here with all the pass interference calls. And once you're there and reviewing ridiculous things like pass interference, judgment calls that shouldn't really be reviewed, follow the letter of the law. Follow what you said you would do years ago. And if there's not conclusive evidence enough to warrant overturning the call. If you can't see that in the first few minutes, you don't need forever to determine that. Then you stand with the original call. Simple. It's just that simple.